All right, hey everyone. I'm here with Shard. He has a D&D 5e channel where he does a lot of great content, and he and I have been working together on content for FlutesLoot.com to kind of utilize his expertise in some of the classes that he's already reviewed, like monks and barbarians. And he recently watched my Cleric subclass ratings video, and he said, "Flutes, I bet I can change your mind on the Death Cleric." And so we set up this call so that we can have a discussion to see if Shard can maybe say, okay, maybe the Death Cleric is not at the bottom of my cleric list. And Shard's a clever guy, so I'm pretty sure he's going to convince me. Shard, do you want to say anything about yourself before we get into it?
Yeah, I mean, I can sort of introduce my channel a bit as well. So, yeah, my channel's called Shard. My name is actually Tim, but I also go by Shard, basically. I've been using that as my kind of handle in games for as long as I can remember. So, and yeah, I do fairly in-depth reviews on my YouTube channel, and recently started working together with Flutes on FlutesLoot.com to do article versions of my video. And I think that seems to be going really well. It's actually helping me as well in terms of the thought process for creating the videos. So yeah, so that's quite an exciting new collaboration, and I'm looking forward for that continuing.
I've got the Death Cleric up here for everyone in the Dungeon Master's Guide. It's that villainous subclass suggestion. I've actually played before, but I don't remember using a lot of the features. I just remember I kind of picked a Death Cleric because it was an evil cleric, and it was a lot of fun to roleplay, and clerics are just always fun to play, no matter what subclass you choose. And that was just for a one-shot. And so I would love to hear your thoughts, Shard. Let's just get into it.
So yeah, so here we have on the left, we've got your review of the Death Cleric, and from the same article, we have the review of the Grave Cleric as well. And one of the things I did note right at the beginning, and one of my first bits of feedback, was that your Grave Cleric got a slightly higher rating for their domain spells than the Death Cleric did. So they got a 3, I think Death Cleric got a 2, if I remember. Yep. And that was the first thing that kind of caught my attention, because the spell list is almost identical, except the Death Cleric actually gets a couple of extra spells on top of what the Grave Cleric gets. So there's literally nothing the Grave Cleric can do that the Death Cleric can't do. And so I felt that was, they probably should get a similar rating.
And that might be that I kind of came in with a bias towards the Death Cleric, and maybe as I was just going through things, I didn't catch that these are so similar.
I don't think Ray of Sickness is a particularly great spell, but it does inflict the poison condition, and so early game it might actually be quite handy. I reviewed the Clerics a little bit because I tend to use a level of Cleric when I'm doing my monk builds. I think a bit of Cleric really helps your monk, especially, because monk doesn't have anything to do with their concentration, and so it's always nice to pick up a bit of bless or something like that. So I think you mentioned in your review that it seems to be a bit mixed up as to whether it's doing martial stuff or spell stuff, basically. So I mean, having had a bit more of a dig into it, I think we could probably clear that up.
Okay, let's
do
it.
Give it a much simpler direction. The thing that does that is the channel divinity, the touch of death, right? So when the cleric uses the channel divinity to destroy another creature's life force by touch, then you have to hit a creature with a melee attack, and then you can use your channel divinity to deal this extra necrotic damage to the target, and the damage equals 5 plus twice his or her cleric level. Now I think most people see that this particular subclass gets a bonus proficiency with martial weapons and assume that they're probably going to use touch of death with a martial weapon. Now, what I actually think you should do with this cleric is almost completely ignore your proficiency with weapons.
Okay.
Because the other thing that this works with is melee spell attacks. The first spell that you pick up when you get this at second level is actually inflict wounds, which is a melee spell attack.
Yeah.
That does 3d10 of damage at melee range, and with this, even at second level, you can add +9 to that. So you can do 3d10 plus 9 with one of your inflict wounds, an average of just over 25 damage at the second level. And so for me, I think early game this looks like a truck. I mean, there's not much that you're fighting at second level that's going to have that many hit points.
Right.
So you only get it once per short rest, but because it's the channel divinity. But even so, I think it's a really impactful thing to be able to do at that level of play. And so that's why I thought that was quite nice at second level when you first get this.
Yeah.
At third level, it gets better because you get spiritual weapon. Yeah. So the wording of spiritual weapon is that when you cast a spell, you can make a melee spell attack against a creature within 5 feet of the weapon. And so the way that I read this, I think this is the correct interpretation, is that you can use your channel divinity with your spiritual weapon. So you don't even have to get into melee range yourself of any enemy. You can just trigger your channel divinity using your spiritual weapon.
Oh, good point. Good point.
Yeah. And this is one of the big go-tos, of course, for most clerics. And this is your bonus action.
Yep.
So this is, for me, is, it's once per channel divinity, which starts off at once per short rest, but it goes up, doesn't it? As you level up, you get more uses of your channel divinity. And so this is just a straight flat upgrade from what I can see to spiritual weapon. And so I think it's a really strong ability, and that's at level 3. Right, so you get this at level 3, and now you don't even need to put yourself at risk. You can just get your spiritual weapon to do extra damage instead.
Right.
So I think that's a really nice tie-in with the channel divinity. And then the one that you were suspecting that I might be covering is coming up, right?
Yes.
Which is Vampiric Touch, right? And so this one, I think, this is one where you would obviously want to check this with the DM that this is going to work. But what the subclass says is that when you hit a creature with a melee attack, you can use the channel divinity to deal extra necrotic damage to the target. Okay, so Vampiric Touch, I think, is level 5, right? So at this point, we're getting 15 extra damage when we first pick this up. Oh, sorry, I just hit the share button. I'm back. And so we get 15 extra damage at this point. So at what point does the damage come in? You, on a hit, 3d6 plus 15 necrotic damage, and you regain hit points equal to half the amount of necrotic damage dealt. So, do you get the hit points for the channel divinity or not? It's an open question, I think.
I know what I would say as the DM. I would absolutely allow that channel divinity to not just do more damage with Vampiric Touch, but amplify Vampiric Touch's necrotic damage to also heal. That is really cool. That's a good point that I had not considered.
Yeah, that's how I read it as well. And because it's one of the other spells that you've got that does a melee spell attack.
Yeah, I'm not sure that like Jeremy Crawford would say it's that way, but I absolutely would. That's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think rule of cool. I think most DMs would probably allow. so that's my thought on it as well. So anyway, that was one that I would probably allow. I'd probably allow that one. And then Vampiric Touch scales as well, and so it's quite nice. Quite nice moving up. So these are the only spells actually that are cleric melee spells or death cleric melee spells. So we've mentioned those 3. Contagion is probably the only other one on this list that you might consider for this, because Contagion doesn't actually do any damage. Mm-hmm. It just poisons the target, and then it gives you that, you've got that really nasty effect if you can wait for 3 turns for them to fail all of their saving throws. They eventually get
right.
You can eventually slimy doom on someone.
If you wanted to, you could use the channel divinity when you use Contagion, right? Because the channel divinity just says when you hit with a melee attack, right? And so even if the melee attack doesn't do any damage, you could technically do it. Yeah,
it's an option. And if you're only facing off against one enemy and you've got channel divinity, you might as well.
Yeah.
You might as well do a bit of extra damage and then poison the target. And this one's at 5th level, so I think you're doing even more damage at this point when you pick up this spell. So with the channel divinity scales quite nicely. And the other ones I like, I do like the necromancy cantrip dueling feature. It's somewhat situational when you can hit 2 targets instead of one. But there is a new there's another necromancy cantrip that people don't talk about a lot, that you can pick up, because you can just get any necromancy cantrip when you pick up this subclass. So most people will probably pick up Chill Touch, which is a great option because of the range, because clerics don't usually have anything. I think Guiding Bolt is about the only other thing that will go out to that kind of range at the beginning of the game. And so most people might want to go for that, and Chill Touch is really nice as well, because it blocks it gives you disadvantage on your undead targets. and it blocks them regaining hit points as well, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I love that part of it.
It's quite a nice. Yeah, I like that part of it as well. So you could hit that. You could hit 2 creatures with that if they happen to be stood next to each other.
Yeah. Can you remind me what Sapping Sting does? Because I forget about the wild mount stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it is from that book, so your DM has to allow you to use it, of course.
Yeah.
But it's a Constitution saving throw, which isn't probably the nicest one to target. But you can take 1d4 necrotic damage and fall prone. So you could actually, knock up to 2 creatures prone if they happen to be standing next to each other.
I like that.
In the front. Yeah, it's quite nice. I think it's quite nice for your frontliners. So so you can knock creatures over just before it's their turn, depending on the initiative.
And it's not great that it's a con save, like you said. But if you're already using your action, like or if you have like Spirit Guardians going, and then you have Spiritual Weapon going for your bonus action, you could just use your action to twin spell Sapping Sting and potentially knock them prone. You'd have advantage with your Spiritual Weapon. Your frontliners will love you. That is cool. I forget about this cantrip.
And then the other point that I kind of thought about was the Inescapable Destruction ability. So now any necrotic damage that you do ignores resistance to necrotic damage. So that basically helps everything that you've been doing pretty much, apart from Spiritual Weapon, I think, whose main attack is not necrotic.
Yeah, and that helps Spirit Guardians too. Spirit Guardians is like my standard for clerics, right? Is like something has to be better than Spirit Guardians, and this helps out against if there's any undead creatures that resist the necrotic.
That's basically a buff for the necrotic version of Spirit Guardian as well, and you're kind of buffing Spiritual Weapon. And so for me, those are kind of the bread and butter basically of your cleric, and you buff them both. So that's why I think it's not that bad.
Yeah.
This particular cleric. Yeah. So I would probably pick Blessed Strikes if I'm allowed to pick the optional feature, because the Divine Strike works with your weapon attack, but Blessed Strikes will work with your cantrips or your weapon attacks. And so if you are using your twin cantrips, then when a creature takes damage from one of your cantrips, you can deal 1d8 radiant damage to that creature, and you can twin your cantrip, your damage in cantrips. And then the last ability, I agree, it isn't fantastic, the Improved Reaper, so I agree with you on that one.
Okay.
There are a couple of spells on this list that I think are worth throwing out as interesting options. One of them is actually up on my screen, right? So this one is one that you can make work a lot with this feature, because it targets your party members, right? So you sacrifice some of your health, you take 48 necrotic damage, which can't be reduced in any way, and one creature of your choice that you can see within range, it gains a number of hit points equal to twice the necrotic damage you take. Now, again, I read this as saying, if it targets only one creature, the spell can instead target 2 creatures within range and within 5 feet of each other.
So it's not that you cast it twice and you take the damage twice. It's that you take the damage once, heal your 2 of your allies at that amount. That's interesting.
As long as they're within 5 feet of each other, right? So
yes,
your 2 front liners basically, and of course you can upcast this as well. So this limits you to using 1st to 5th level spells.
Yes.
So there doesn't seem to be any limit on upcasting those spells. Inflict Wounds, of course, is on this list as well.
Yeah.
So if it does come up and you upcast it to max, you can do 22 d10 necrotic damage.
Yeah.
It can't be resisted. I did like the life transference. I think that one at max level is 10 d8. So you can take 10 d8 necrotic damage and heal 20 and heal double. Right? Is that correct?
Double. Yeah.
Yeah. And you heal double. So that's an average of 45 damage that you're taking, and you can basically heal 90 twice. So you can heal 180 damage. You'll take some damage doing this, but that could keep you a whole front run in a pinch if you really need it. So I quite like that one. There's a few others in here that I like. I like Bestow Curse. And the reason why I like this one is if you do upcast it to 5th level or beyond, it becomes concentration free, right? So using a spell slot 5th level or higher. And so if you do it, so you can do it when you've got your Spirit Guardians up as well, and you can curse 2 creatures at once if they're next to each other. Some of the spells that you get from your domain fall into this category,
Mhm.
but I don't think are very good. So Ray of Sickness is in here. Ray of Enfeeblement is in here. I don't like this one because it takes a concentration.
Mhm.
But it is a ranged spell attack. There's no saving throw against the first turn. So you can debuff 2 targets' strength as long as you hit the attack. And then they get a save on subsequent turns for Constitution save.
Mhm.
So, you know, I probably wouldn't use it, not at 17th level. The other one I think that might be, Contagion. Yeah. Again, very situational.
Mhm.
But the other one that might be an option, and again, you need some help from your DM with this, is Vampiric Touch. So it's questionable to me as to whether or not this applies for the feature, for the class feature, because the class feature says
When you cast
when
the
the
spell.
cleric casts a necromancy spell that targets only one creature, the spell can be creatures within range. Right now, Vampiric Touch is the only one on this list that's a single target effect spell that has a duration that goes on over multiple turns. So you're not casting it every turn, you're only casting it on the first turn.
Right.
And so, you know, could you apply this to 2 creatures? Is that if they were within 5 feet of each other? That's the
Yeah.
on the first turn, probably I would have said.
Mm-hmm. Rules as written, I'd say, does not work. But someone who's loving their Death Cleric and using Vampiric Touch like I want them to, because that's cool, I would allow it.
I mean, I thought the other option for this is because the range is self.
Give someone else an active Vampiric Touch.
Yeah, you could give somebody else Vampiric Touch.
Cast it on your parrot on your shoulder to go leech someone's life.
Yeah.
That's also a cool way to do it. I could probably, assuming it's not gonna ruin the game or anything and it's high level, I feel like this is a pretty minor thing to allow. I think that's pretty cool. Yeah. I like it when subclass features enable you to use game mechanics that are usually suboptimal, less tempting. And a lot of these spells normally would not be great. But a Death Cleric could make better use of them. I think it's the whole 5-foot twin spelling, I think is too much of a requirement. Like the enchantment wizard doesn't have that requirement of they have to be 5 feet next to each other. You just twin spell to 2 within range. And this is a 17th level ability. The enchantment wizard gets it at level 10. So I think if someone were playing this, or if I were playing it, I'd ask or facilitate to kind of open up some of these abilities, because I like that they enable a different way of playing the game. And I think that I should rate this Death Cleric higher. I'm convinced.
I have convinced you.
Yes.
Okay, I have one more bit to add to it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You're not even done. Keep going.
I'm not done. You know, I mean, because we can power this guy up even more. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's hear it.
It's one of my favorite races anyway, right? Which is the Bugbear. I mean, I love it because it's great for monks. Right? It's a great monk race. And the long-limbed feature of this says that when you make a melee attack on your turn, your reach for it is 5 feet greater than normal. And it doesn't actually say it has to be a weapon attack.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got long reach for your touch as well. And so you can do all of your melee spell attacks.
That is a great point. You don't have to put yourself in trouble being next to them or take an opportunity attack. You can keep your distance with your long-limbed, do your Vampiric Touch, and then get away and make them go through some of your frontliners if they want to get to you. I like that.
Yeah, it's really nice. And they'll still be in range of your Spirit Guardians as well, even 10 foot away.
Yeah, that's another great point.
You can maneuver that so that you can stop them from getting to you as well. So
excellent.
I think the 3 things kind of tie in really nice. So, now the Bugbear also opens up the possibility that I said that I wasn't really interested in, which is the melee, a melee option for your Death Cleric, right? Because a Bugbear with a reach weapon, a halberd or a glaive, has a reach of 15 feet, and that ties in with one spell that we haven't really talked about, which is on the subclass list at the top, which is Anti-Life Shell. And so this isn't just a Death Domain cleric trick. You can do this with Grave of this spell too. But Anti-Life Shell gives you a shimmering barrier that extends out from you in a 10-foot radius, and it hedges creatures out, right?
Uh-huh.
So you can actually move creatures around with this, which is really nice. Because the only time I think the only time you lose it is if you like squash a creature so that it can't go anymore. So you squash it into a corner, and then that will force it to go down. But otherwise, it actually moves creatures in front of it and hedge people around, living creatures. So this ties in with a couple of things that you've got. You've got animate dead.
Mm-hmm.
So your skeleton archers can be surrounding you in your anti-life shell, plinking away at people, and melee attacks can't reach them, and you're getting half cover from your skeletons, and you can just use your cantrips and stuff like that from inside of it. Or if you're a bugbear wielding a glaive, you can back out of your anti-life shell, and they can't actually retaliate because they can't reach you unless they've got more than a 10-foot reach.
That is cheeky.
So that's really cheeky. Yeah, I really like that. I mean, I like it anyway, but I particularly like it on a bugbear because now you've actually got something to do. You got something that you can use your martial weapons proficiency for as well. So I could imagine a little bit more of a multi-class fighter cleric if you really wanted to lean into that. I think the Echo Knight would be really fun for this as well. I still think that Spirit Guardians will probably be the go-to option, but if you need to hold the bridge, you can cast it, and the living creatures just can't get past it.
Well, that's great. I'm gonna have to go back to my article and figure out where the Death Cleric sits, because I think I now see the appeal that it is a playstyle enabler. My bias, like I said, I like the rule of cool with things like Vampiric Touch and the channel Divinity. I like that very much. All right, well, let's open up my ratings article, because I remember you have it open there. So right now I had Death at the bottom. I think I actually like it enough now that I could probably put it above Light. I know a lot of people like the Light Cleric. I don't see it as a playstyle enabler. It's just a Fireball Cleric, which is great for a little while at low levels, but high levels not so much. So I think Death Cleric could go up, what is that, 1, 2, 3, like 5 notches. I wouldn't put it above Order, I think, because I like how Order enables enchantment stuff, and I'm biased towards that more so than the Vampiric Touch stuff. But I think that's where it's going to end up placing. Do you think I rate the Grave Cleric too highly?
No, I really like that one as well.
Okay.
So I do think that the channel Divinity can be really, really good. So that vulnerability is just, that could be astonishing in some cases. I quite like that one as well. It's one of my favorites. I think the Twilight and the Beast are just overpowered, the two new ones. Yeah. So, I mean, I'd be tempted not, if somebody wants to play a cleric, I might just ban those ones because I just think they make all the others pale in comparison, basically, which isn't great. So,
yeah, I'm in agreement with you. Where do you think Death Cleric would go in my listing? Because you said you agreed with my list except for Death. Where do you think it should go?
Yeah, I mean, overall, I think it was relatively similar to what I would do. I'd probably have it a little bit lower. I just think the heal bot, so it kind of lends itself a bit to being a heal bot, and I don't like that play style for a cleric, because I think there's so much more than that, and so because of that, I might rate that one a bit lower.
Okay.
I probably wouldn't play a life cleric. I think in the middle somewhere is fine. I have a big soft spot for Arcana cleric.
I do too.
Yeah, I really like it, and if you went for say if you went for a custom lineage or a variant human at the beginning, and took the magic initiative for druid and picked up Shillelagh, you can make a really good gish out of an Arcana cleric, because you can take the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide Cantrips from the wizard list, and it actually becomes really, really good as a kind of a gish character. So it just gives you a completely different play style again for what you'd imagine for your Arcana cleric. You sort of a bookish cleric, but you can actually have him up in the front line, which is quite nice. I have a big soft spot for the Trickery Domain cleric, I have to say. So that one for me personally, I think would probably rate a bit higher. Mm-hmm. Mainly because I think it has some of the best spells.
Oh yeah.
So spell, and because you are primarily, your job is to be a spellcaster, right, as a cleric, and so I think I would probably rate that one a bit higher as well. But other than that, I think we're fairly close. I think the Flutes Domain is really strong. as well.
Can we talk about trickery for a second? Because that is the one I think is the hardest to rate. Because I think like new players would really fall into some traps with it, but experienced players, they know the value of polymorph and a bunch of the other spells. Like those are all just such good spells. Yeah. And I personally love Modify Memory and Dominate Person. I know some people don't like some of those type of spells, but like everything on there is just a winner, and it makes me want to rate it so high. But like the poison damage, level 8, and if Invoke Duplicity doesn't do what people want it to do, I've just seen them get so confused by it, and so that makes me like rate it down. But I'm like, it's so good though. I go back and forth. I never know where to place it.
It's really great. I mean, now I think that you've got the Blessed Strikes option, so you don't have to do the poison damage. You can take this instead and do the radiant damage with your cantrips or weapon attacks. It's not quite as often that you get it, I think. It's only, you can only do it once per turn, right?
Right.
The Blessed Strikes. But at least it's a bit more useful than poison damage.
That's true. Tasha's has kind of removed that limitation. That's true. Yeah. I think I'm going to have to move trickery up a little bit too.
I love Invoke Duplicity. I think it's amazing. I mean, casting spells as though you were in the illusion space. I mean, I think it ties in with some of the melee spells we were just talking about, the Death Cleric, right? So you can be doing your vampiric touches and
we could do vampiric touch through it because it requires your concentration to do Invoke Duplicity.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that one.
But you could do like inflict wounds, right?
You can certainly do your inflict wounds. Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct. I completely forgot about that. Yeah, that was the one downside of that's the worst bit of Invoke Duplicity is the concentration bit. Yes.
Yeah, that's where I've seen players play this, and when they like new players, and when I tell them like, oh well, you won't be able to do like those concentration spells while doing it. They're so disappointed, and I try to enable it because they're like new players anyway, but I do tell them like, just FYI, this is how it would work, and they're just a little bit deflated by that, and maybe that's a failing of me, but by rules as written, I wish it didn't require concentration. That would be really cool. Maybe a little overpowered though. It would definitely go way up in the ratings if it didn't.
It would, if it wasn't a concentration effect. That does kind of bring it down in terms of the usefulness. The usefulness of it.
Yeah, and the other thing is if you're using a spiritual weapon, which is another one of those like standards for me as a cleric, it using your bonus action for your duplicate is also going to come into conflict with that, and so that also makes it a little difficult for me because I rate spiritual weapons so highly.
Yeah, I do as well. So I mean, but the channel divinity is only going to be once a short rest, right? So.
True. You don't have to do it all the time. That's a good point. You can be selective.
Not using it that often.
Yeah.
At least not at the beginning of the game, right? So maybe only once, maybe a couple of times a day.
Out of combat possibilities for it too are pretty fun. I like that.
Yeah. I think that's where this cleric can find some of the out of combat stuff that you can do. Mm-hmm. I think this one is really fun. I don't think it's particularly strong compared to some of them in combat, but then I think, like we've already said, Spirit Guardians and Spiritual Weapon are your bread and butter, right? So that's what most of the clerics are going to do anyway. I think out of combat is a hoot, right? So because you've got 2 clerics running around, eventually you've got how many? 5 clerics running around, yeah. You've got 4 duplicates of yourself running around the place. I can just imagine all kinds of shenanigans with that.
That is true. Really a bunch of illusions would be a lot of fun.
A bunch of illusions running around. And once you get to the point where you can use channel divinities more than once, you only get 2 uses, right? How long do you get that? 6.
Pretty early, level 6. Yeah.
6th level already. You get 2 uses of your channel divinity.
One thing I also like with Invoke Duplicity is if someone figures out like that you're the real one and which one's the duplicate, if you can get you and your duplicate out of sight, like behind cover, and have your duplicate run out, or they have to guess which one you are again because they're not sure, which is kind of like a mislead spell. That's a level 5 spell. That can be a cool little detail. You're not invisible like that spell, but
I mean, I don't think the illusion doesn't take up any space, does it?
Yep.
So you can actually just walk through it, or have it walk through you.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, well, who's who, right? Now we've lost you again. Even if you're in direct sight, it can be really difficult to figure out. Did you walk up to it and stop and then use your bonus action to move the duplicate? Or, which one is you and which one is it?
Yeah.
So I just think even if you're in plain sight, I think it can be really nice to do that.
Yeah, I could see some saying you can't like shuffle, like share a space with it because you're supposed to summon it in an unoccupied space. But I think once it's up, it can move through things freely. That's how I would rule that.
Yeah, I think so as well. Yeah, I think the Echo actually takes up space, whereas this one it doesn't. So
yeah.
But you also got to kind of compare it now to there's one of the new wizards has got his animated spell book, right? So I've lost the name of the wizard off the top of my head. The Scribe's Wizard, that's it.
Oh, yep.
They've got this thing. It's a similar feature now with the spell.
The Manifest Mind.
Manifest Mind, that's right. But that one's, I think, significantly better.
Yeah.
Than the Channel Divinity.
Yeah, Manifest Mind is pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's really nice. I like that feature.
Yeah.
I haven't got around to fully reviewing all the wizards yet, so.
That's a big undertaking.
It's so hard to do. There's so many spells to choose from.
Yep. Well, cool. I know we came to talk about Death Clerics, but we ended up kind of looking at the overall ratings and that talk about the trickery too. I like talking D&D, so this was fun. I'll make this an updated list, so if anyone likes my ratings list, you can see where they end up soon when I make the updates. Shard, was there anything else you wanted to go over on this call?
No. I think I've sent you some articles recently, so you've got a few in hand.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I think I've got a few more that are not far off as well. So I've touched on all. I think I've basically started all of the barbarian subclasses now. I'm actually finding it more useful to write the article first and then record the video.
It's been really helpful for us.
Yeah. So I think, from my point of view, when I'm writing the article, I think it gives me a bit more space to kind of imagine around some of the features as I'm documenting them.
Yeah.
And so I've come up with 3 or 4 ideas for some of these barbarians that I hadn't previously thought of, just while I was in the process of writing articles about them. So
yeah, that's perfect. Right now we're looking to have one of Shard's articles out on flutesloot.com doing about one a week, and they'll have his videos for them embedded as well. So make sure to check those out. Look forward to more collaborations between Shard and Flutes.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. I think it's great. I enjoyed the call. I think it's a lot of fun talking through these things and finding other ways to play these characters. I really enjoy doing this kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, I did as well. All right, well, you have a good rest of your day, Tim. I know that it's a little bit later there in Europe, so you enjoy your weekend.
Yeah, you too. All right.
See ya.
Okay.